Syed meets a mother whose only son died in a Robinson crash. Her fight for the truth and a landmark coroner's investigation leads to this week into the ever-changed aviation phenomenon.
Taylor 14, Crossing River, altitude 6,500 or below, confirm.
It was the 19th of February. I'd said to James that I wanted him to come to work and give me a hand. That morning he wanted to go and play golf. He'd arranged to play golf with some buddies and I went, no. He was sitting here doing the accounts and must have had a tap on the shoulder from Steve to say, let's go and do some more training. Stephen worked for me on 3 different sorties and he was one of my senior pilots, very accomplished. So James and Steve were up here conducting these exercises in this wide open valley. On that day there was no wind, the tussocks weren't moving. I was riding to a friend of mine and then I just had this terrible feeling like something's happened to James. Hi, James. So I get on the radio and I'm calling the aircraft. No answer. There was no mayday calls made. It was just the tracking had stopped. I went out to one of my pilots, said, let's go, something's happened. I don't know why. Yeah, I just knew that something was wrong. Perhaps it was his soul saying goodbye. My pilots, they dropped me down in the gorge down here to the left. It was like just a little area that we could get into. And we ran up through the beech forest. And they were there, they hadn't made it. The aircraft was just this crumbled heap and James was like 2 meters from the helicopter. It was like he'd stepped out and land down in this beautiful green moss. I had the scarf on, which I always know wear. I wrapped it around him and tried to bring him back to life. But I couldn't bring him back to life. And
this is Louisa Patterson, better known as Choppy.
I'm in my 5th decade of flying. I should have feathers, really.
She was destined for a life in the sky.
My father was a Spitfire pilot in World War II. My uncle was a pilot in World War II, and then he went on to become the man in charge of NAC, our national airline. I went to Wanganui, to the commercial pilot school, and then I saw these helicopters doing circuits, so I wandered over and did a couple of flights, and that was it. I was hooked.
In 1986, Choppy set up a helicopter tour company in Queenstown, earning her that world-famous nickname.
So I met up with helicopter pilot Choppy, who took me out to explore the majesty of the South Island.
Why did you want to be a helicopter pilot? I started flying airplanes. And then I joined Air New Zealand and flew passenger planes.
Choppy, an aviation pioneer who still finds joy in the job.
To be able to land up in the glaciers and hear the creaking of snow and the sound of silence, and to be able to share that experience with our visitors to Queenstown, it's pretty special.
But no job or joy compared to being a mum.
When you have a child and you hold them for the first time and they look at you with their little eyes like they've fallen, like a bird fallen out of a nest.
Was he shy? Was he confident? What was James like?
He was very, very humble, but he also had my father's cheeky ways. He had that ability to make other people around him feel comfortable with him, and he always brought out the best in other people.
Just 18 when he died, James Patterson Gardner was Choppy's only child.
He was still just a skinny little boy, just nudging 6 foot when he was killed.
James was flying in a Robinson helicopter, did you purchase your first Robinson?
Early 2000s. 2 Robinson R44s, both brand new from the factory.
Choppy's company flew French turbine choppers, but she thought a cheaper model would make them more competitive for smaller jobs.
Frank really had gotten into the industry because he wanted to see a small private helicopter that somebody like himself could afford.
Frank Robinson founded the Robinson Helicopter Company in the early 70s. Now, his son Kurt runs the business.
If you focus on the little things over and over again, then I think you get the big picture right. And that's something that's very important to us.
The California-based company has sold over 13,000 helicopters. The most popular model, the 4-seater R44. It's the world's best-selling civilian helicopter. What did you know at the time about Robinson helicopters?
We knew that if you pushed them beyond their flight envelope, beyond their limitations, that there were repercussions. But any aircraft flown with respect of the aircraft's operating parameters, you think would be safe. If I knew then what I know now about the Robinson R44, then I certainly wouldn't have let myself, my crew, my son, or my treasured passengers be flying in an aircraft like that.
Frank Robinson wanted lots of people to fly helicopters, and they've been very successful.
Tom McCready, an ex-Air Force helicopter engineer and crash investigator.
They're very good agricultural machines in New Zealand, flying in light conditions at lower speeds.
Lightweight, cheaper to run, and much cheaper to buy. A new Robinson R44 costs about $500,000. That's half the cost of comparable choppers from other brands.
When it's flying normally, it behaves as designed, but once an upset occurs, they behave differently.
Robinsons make up 25% of New Zealand's helicopter fleet. Yet, over the past 20 years, 52% of fatal helicopter accidents were in a Robinson.
On a lot of these accidents, they are just flying along straight and level, and then it's just confetti.
We're sitting 2,000 feet above the accident site in the Lopu Valley. It's a long way to fall.
It's 7 years since Choppy found her son James and pilot Steve among the carnage of the Robinson wreckage.
I looked at it from my aviation compartment, my brain, and I was like, what has happened here? This aircraft is missing. It's missing its tail. It's missing a portion of one of the main rotor blades. How would this aircraft have just broken up and flagged?
Well, I went to a number of Robinson accidents, and I started stitching all the accidents together. So rather than looking at one accident, I started remembering my previous ones.
Tom McCready has been the lead investigator on multiple Robinson crashes.
I've had my own private hangar for a number of years, and I've done an awful lot of work in that hangar.
He's given us exclusive access.
Here is a classic mast bump. There's quite a decent mark there, actually.
This is what's left of James and Steve's helicopter. Among the crumpled metal, a disturbing detail reveals what happened inside the helicopter while it was in mid-air.
This section of blade is what's gone through the cabin.
How can you tell that the blade has gone through the cabin?
Those are perspex marks.
Right.
I've seen that on many accidents. It's a standard signature. In this case here, you've got a dent
Wow.
where the blade has struck the control.
So someone in the helicopter was holding onto this, and the blade has come right there.
Correct.
Let's have a look at how experts think that could happen. Now, some helicopters, like this Bell 206 Jet Ranger, use a two-bladed teetering rotor head. The blades are fixed to the hub, and that hub seesaws on a single point at the top of the mast. Just like a seesaw, it all moves together. If one blade goes up, the other must go down. Now, Robinson helicopters use the same rotor head design, but there's a crucial difference. It's their patented tri-hinge, which has 3 pivot points rather than just one. Now, once in the air, as long as conditions are stable, everything works fine. But if there's unexpected turbulence or a pilot moves the controls too quickly, the rotor head can get out of kilter. Within just seconds, the hub seesaws violently and causes what's known as a mast bump. Now, a mast bump can happen in any two-bladed helicopter, but in a Robinson, some experts believe that unique tri-hinge can lead the blades to become wildly out of sync with each other. That causes intense vibrations that break crucial parts of the helicopter. At that point, there's nothing a pilot can do. The broken parts allow the blades to tilt down so far that they strike the tail boom or slice through the cabin. The chopper simply breaks up in midair, and this all happens within a matter of seconds.
Well, I'm a facts-based person. Robinson will often say that pilot input caused this and all that, but they have no evidence.
In New Zealand, 19 people have died in 14 Robinson in-flight breakups since 1991.
Transport Accident Investigation Commission, TAKE, they did quite a bold move where they put on that watch list.
The TAKE watch list highlights the most serious safety concerns for transport in New Zealand. In response to TAKE's actions, major organisations like DOC, MPI and Fire and Emergency New Zealand introduced a ban.
If a government department like TAKE, they put it on their watch list, that was bad enough for them, and so their staff don't fly Robinsons anymore.
Are you anti-Robinson helicopters?
Not at all. No, I've flown Robinsons. A lot of my good friends fly Robinsons. In some areas, they've been very successful. And here in New Zealand, they're quite good agricultural machines.
Why did you push for a coronial inquest?
I really wanted the experts of their field, including Robinson helicopters, to be heard by the coroner. I felt in the least that it would be my duty to do that for Steve and James, to establish why their life had been cut so short.
After the break, the coroner's decision
This should serve as a wake-up to Robinson pilots.
and Robinson's response.
Hello, is this Kurt?
Some roses from home, darling. Last of the roses.
Louisa, it is quite fitting to be here today, isn't it?
Mother's Day. Visiting James. Not a place mothers want to be. A little bit of fragrance from home, huh? You know, you bring your children up safely as you can, and you're always protecting them.
7 years ago, James Patterson Gardner was killed in a Robinson helicopter crash.
I basically had 24 hours to go before he was all on his own.
His death the day before he was due to leave to university.
I don't think they have a word in the English language for a mother that's lost a child. You learn how to somehow bury it inside. My mission would be to help stop any other mothers have to go through this terrible pain of losing a child unnecessarily.
That mission is already taking flight.
One of the early findings regarding James and Steve's accident was that they had no answers. That if there'd been a cockpit video recorder in the aircraft, then they would have been able to find an answer probably within 24 hours. There's nothing really for helicopters at all. So we decided to invent one. So over my right shoulder, you'll see what we call the eye in the sky. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, then a video is priceless.
But with no video evidence from her son's fatal flight, Choppy says Kurt Robinson, CEO of Robinson Helicopters, shared with her his own theory.
The reason that he thought the aircraft broke up in flight is because James was 18 and he has a teenage brain, and he probably grabbed the controls, or if he was at the controls would have said to his instructor, what happens if I do this? Even if he was the type of child that was a bit gung-ho and never been in a chopper before, any other helicopter, it would have just wobbled. It wouldn't have broken up and fly if that's what he had done.
In June last year, the coroner investigated how James and Stephen died.
The purpose of a coroner's inquest quickly is to ensure or to try to prevent these accidents happening again.
Garth Galloway, a leading legal expert in health and safety in aviation, represented Choppy at the inquest.
For so many years, we've heard in New Zealand that there's nothing wrong with Robinson helicopters. The reality is that the design is flawed, and this is what the coroner has found. When they're doing these short trips on low-lying land, then there don't seem to be as many accidents. Issue is when they get into mountainous conditions.
This week, the coroner ruled the crash that killed James and Stephen would not have occurred in any other type of helicopter.
She essentially ruled out pilot error.
Absolutely she did. It was to do solely with the design of this helicopter. It's incredibly significant ruling. This should serve as a wake-up to Robinson pilots.
Did the Robinson Helicopter Company participate in the coronial inquiry?
They chose not to come, and in my view that is an indictment on the Robinson Company, and people are entitled to ask why would they not come to an inquest in New Zealand in relation to fatal accident involving two men in circumstances where there have been 17 other people killed before them.
We tried over several weeks through phone, email and text to speak to Kurt Robinson.
Hello, is this Kurt? Kia ora, my name is Marva. I'm calling from Television New Zealand. How are you? It's just hung up on me.
5 days ago, we received this statement.
We do not agree with many of the findings and recommendations in the coroner's report. Robinson continues to implement design changes to improve safety, such as cockpit video recorders. We'll continue to work with TAC and CAA to further educate pilots and eliminate accidents.
It's just embarrassing. It's excruciating to listen to that. The coroner has found that there is an engineering issue here, a design issue. Robinson continue to say that we need to educate the pilots. It's wrong.
What were the coroner's key recommendations?
They should not be flown in moderate to severe turbulence under any circumstances. Also, that in mountainous conditions, the speed of them should be limited to 70 knots. And the other major finding was that all helicopters should be fitted with inboard cameras.
Who are the recommendations directed to?
Some of them are directed towards CAA.
The CAA, or Civil Aviation Authority, is a country's civil aviation regulator. It's their job to establish and maintain the rules that keep flying safe. Despite multiple requests, CAA's Chief Executive Keith Manch refused to be interviewed, instead sending us this statement.
The CAA is carefully working through the comprehensive findings and recommendations of the coroner. This will take some time. At this stage, we are not in a position to make comment on the way they will be addressed.
It's disappointing that CAA haven't fronted. They must get involved in this issue, and they have to get involved soon.
We also requested an interview with the Minister of Transport, Michael Wood, who referred us to the Associate Minister of Transport, Kieran McAnulty. He then referred us back to the CAA.
The worst thing that can happen is that everybody points and says it's your responsibility, not ours. It's now incumbent on all of the participants around this industry to get together and to work towards ensuring that people don't die needlessly, as James and Stephen did.
There's solace in knowing her son didn't cause the crash, but Choppy still wears the weight of James's absence.
His presence, his laughter, his physical being, his smell. But I think for him, I miss most the opportunity that he's never going to have to make other people happier, to enrich their lives. I found this compass in his room that I gifted to him. James, darling, follow your dreams and May you always find your way home. With love, Mum.
He'll never come home. She knows that. But she's determined that everyone else does.
I'm not a vigilante, but if I knew then what I knew now about Robinson helicopters, then my son would be alive. I mean, my message is, mothers, do not let your children fly in Robinson helicopters.
Well, earlier this week, the CAA presented Choppy with an Aviation Safety Award for her work with the Eye in the Sky cockpit video recorder.
Horrible aircraft. Absolutely horrible. Yeah, if that's all you can afford, then just give it a miss. I mean, you could buy one of these. Look, it's even going sideways. Awful.